Okay, everybody. Welcome to another show of Let's Talk About It. I'm Black Ops.
I'm Miss E.
This is Wonder.
And it's Living Proof, Dean Geronimo. We're here. Give us a call, 646-233-1302.
Listen, you always do a good job
I
with
know
that.
you do a great job. I know.
Glad to have you on the team,
you
man.
did it, and nobody even had to ask you to do it.
That's
you
right.
You do a great job, right?
Listen,
Thank
we got
you.
a lot to cover today. A lot going on to the news cycle, or in the news cycle, I should say, man. And I think we're going to dive into it. There's a couple shout outs that I want to give out to today. So many people hit me up today that I'd be remiss not to say hello. But before I get to that, how we doing, Missy?
I'm doing good.
You doing good?
I'm being nosy, but
Are
yeah,
you?
I'm doing good.
What you looking at? I'm looking right at the screen. What you looking at?
I was just looking. Yeah, it's
Yes,
good.
you're still lovely as
Just
ever. You
checking
got
out,
your fans.
y'all.
Let's give a shout out to Miss E and all her fans that be
Thank
coming
you.
in and
Thank you. Thank you.
wonder what's good, baby.
What's up, man? Good to be here, brother.
As always,
Kind
man.
of running on slow gases, man.
Are
I
you?
think it's the heat. Yeah,
I want to say the man got his foot on your neck, but I know that's not you.
yeah,
y'all.
man. I don't know what it is, man.
No,
But I'm
listen,
here.
Listen, Thursday came up before I knew it. I was like, it was just Monday. I was like, I got the show tonight, so I'm trying to get myself
Mm-hmm.
together. I got the super producers like, bring your black shirts today. I'm just like, oh man, so I'm running around, but I'm here. It's always
Yeah.
good, but good to see you, Wonder, as always.
Good to
brother.
be seen,
My
brother. Good
man,
to see you too.
My brother from another mother. What's going on?
You know what? As I say, man, I'm hanging on like
Like
an
old
old loose
loose
too. I'm still here. Better to be seen than viewed. And I appreciate being here today.
See, can we get a shout out to Virginia, y'all? To Virginia, what do you
My hometown, Petersburg, Virginia, y'all.
Petersburg, Virginia
Yeah.
created,
That's
right? Created that, but I know I'm a Yankee because I'll never be able to do those sayings like that. I get tongue tied and everything else. But no, listen,
You
there's
get
a
used to it, bro.
there's a few things we're gonna cover from, of course, the unfortunate tragedy that happened out in El Paso, Texas, to include Dayton, Ohio, and then down in Mississippi, the ice raids that happened today on the first day back to school. But
Oh,
we'll
it
get
was
to that.
today? That
Yeah, I
happened
believe the
today?
raids were today. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and so if not, yes,
I
but I
said
know.
record numbers too.
Yeah, record numbers with that. But listen, I got to give a couple shout outs. You know, this is my keep it real moment. I'll keep it a little short, but a couple people I want to and let me get my phone so I can make sure that I got this
Okay.
right here. But first, I'm
need a
gonna start
pencil.
off with my man Chris Cornish from Empire. Can we get a round of applause? Chris Cornish. She's the president of licensing there. Listen, took me and my director at A&R out to New York in his loft, penthouse, whatever you call it. I got a bunch of gold and platinum records around his walls and gave us just the inside view as I worked some other business ventures there and served as a great mentor in that regard. Just totally a wealth of knowledge,
great.
So I love to see in this case Black excellence. Like, he held nothing back, and when we went out, we were VIP, no lines.
Right.
Got the drink bracelet, and let me tell you, he's very unassuming.
Okay.
To see him, you would say him, but it's him. And listen, he walked into the spot, and all eyes were on him, and so it gave you an insight to exactly who he was. And he said that he didn't have all of his gold and platinum plaques up because he had over 40. But I know I got to take a look at one that he had with J. Cole and Iggy Azalea, and I was like, man, that is incredible. So big up to one of my mentors, although he's younger, Chris Cornish. That's what I call mentoring right there. Nothing selfish about him. Then listen, Earl Esau from the New Projects here in New Jersey. Big up Earl for reaching out to me today. Always served as a big brother to me. Father from Monroe and 3rd here in good old Plainfield, New Jersey. Hit me up early in the week. Much love. My man Snook from the Projects. Big up to Snook for reaching out to me today. Same thing with Taheem, another New Project type. Gave me a call earlier today. We talked for about 30 minutes. And then finally, my man Yim, Tim Anderson from the Bricks. Big up to the Bricks and Yim for calling me today just to, share some love, share some knowledge. Listen, good, bro. Big
That's
ups to
good.
all those people. So
That's great.
we always want to celebrate people when they pass away. And these brothers reached out to me. I mean, time and time I could go. There's a list of names, but they in particularly reached out to me today. So I wanted to give them love and big up to, again, Chris Cornish, who between New York, L.A., and San Francisco, brother stays on the move, but always answers my call, always makes it a priority for me to get to him, and I love that young man. Good dude. I love them all, actually, but that's what I had. Anything you got real quick?
Well, it's kind of hard to follow that, but I will say, and I'm kind of like stealing Wonder's idea because he had mentioned, and I think it would be, remiss not to mention Toni Morrison's death this week.
Yes.
She's 88.
He
I
was
didn't know
the
she
Return
was-
of the Mac guy, right? Or who? No.
Toni
Who?
Morrison, the
Morrison.
author.
Oh, the
beloved,
author.
beloved,
all right.
bruh.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yes,
Anyway,
I'm sorry.
But
I'm
she was
human.
88. I
Yes.
didn't know she was that old. Did you know she was
Yeah.
that well?
She wrote Beloved,
apparently-
right?
Yes.
Okay,
got
see,
it.
I'm
I-
there.
okay,
There you
okay,
go. You got it,
All
bro.
right. I'm there.
Yeah,
You got
anyway,
it.
she passed away
Yeah.
this week. And I think in New York. She lived in upstate. I think she lived like upstate New York. But she was the first African American woman to win the Nobel Prize in literature, and that's not a small, that's not a small
No,
thing.
not
I
at
think
all.
she won that like in 1993. But we all know her novels. I was a Toni Morrison fan. I liked her, reading her books. I actually have a few of them. I never read Beloved because I'm gonna be honest with you.
Right.
Oprah
The
ruined
movie
that
was
for
like,
me,
yeah, it was.
But Song of Solomon was definitely one. The Bluest Eye is definitely one of my faves too. And her writing was, if you ever read her novels, it's not like a straight trip, with her novels. They're
Right.
not like what they call, like in literary terms, it's not linear, where like it starts at the beginning and it ends at the end. It's like it jumps, it jumps through not just time, but it jumps like kind of spiritually a little bit, and it's there. You really got to like read it, but all the while there's a poetry to what she's writing. It really is. You got to read her to really appreciate her. So, rest in peace to Ms. Morrison. And I think I've said this before. Every time an artist dies, whether it is a musician, whether it's an actor, whether it's an author, we don't talk too much about authors here. Like
Right.
I know musicians is something that
Sure.
know. But the thing with an artist is that what they leave behind, they leave something behind where it's like they never die, like it's
Right.
eternal,
Right.
whether it's their music, we've been on the air where like Prince has passed and, things really shocking, deaths. I mean, she lived a very long life and a very fulfilled life. I never heard anything crazy about her, it's just positivity.
No.
And
Yeah.
so, and what she leaves behind is a legacy for, all authors, certainly African American women authors. And I'm going to say this, I'll probably end it on this, but she was unapologetically black. She wrote for black people.
Right.
And she said, I write for black people. And if, and the thing is, she enjoyed mainstream success as well. Because I was reading her obituary in the New York Times, and there were so many people like commenting, and you could tell everybody wasn't black, and they were like, Toni Morrison's, her, her books changed my life, her this, that, and the other, so, but she wasn't trying to cater towards that. It just organically went to that.
It was
and
genuine.
She was okay.
Yeah, it was
she was
genuine
okay
in
with
her
it.
heart.
She was okay if it didn't.
Yeah.
She was like, I write for black people.
Listen,
That's it.
and she also received the Presidential Medal of Freedom
Yes,
from
she did,
President
from Barack Obama. She
Right.
sure did. She sure did. And the other thing is, and this was just something that, and thank you, Wanda, for bringing it up. And I know I kind of like hijacked your topic, but
It's okay. It's all right. We can share.
the other thing that I
Sharing
was
is caring.
reading today, or it wasn't today, it might have been yesterday, was she talked about in her books, and if you've read her work, she talks about her characters not being Southern and not being ghetto.
Right.
And she's right. Like her characters are not like it's not. They don't take place in the right. It's not stereotypical in the South, and it's not stereotypical in the ghettos of the North. It's like Midwestern. There's no stereotype there. That you hit the nail on the head. And I was like, when I read it, I was like,
because we kind of get boxed into like these paradigms that they want to see in Hollywood. Listen, there's a movie out right now. I'm seeing the commercials about the young man who got locked up. He was an All-American football player,
Brian Banks.
Brian Banks, right? And once he gets out, he gets his trial, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, in my very humble opinion, there are other stories besides prison and sports that exist out there that need to be told. Why does it always have to involve a ball or anger? Every time. There are other stories out there to be told.
And a white savior. And that's the thing. Like she didn't cater to that.
Right.
Like, you got it. Like that's one of the reasons. Like I didn't. The movie The Blind Side, like I didn't like that movie. I hated that movie.
But it still involved an athlete and a ball.
What I'm saying is there was no positive black character in the movie. The only positive people were the white characters. And it was like, really? Like, what? We couldn't, this guy couldn't be successful without this, And I know his thing was based on a true story.
Right.
But people take... creative license to tell a story, and it was just so skewed. It's like, you mean to tell me there was not one positive black person in this man's life? Because the way this is being portrayed on the screen, there wasn't.
If they ever,
And so anyway, I applaud her for not catering to that and not really giving a fuck if you liked it or not. And that's that.
I know you get raw with it sometimes, Missy.
No, but she didn't. And she didn't. I remember there was an interview one time with this woman, and she was like, you don't force black characters into you don't ask other authors why they don't, write more black characters. I don't have to write white characters. And I'm not.
One of my first mentors, I was at a barbecue here a few weeks ago. And about 2 weeks ago, my cousin's actually up here this way. And I got to see Elliot Simmons. And I know nobody knows Elliot Simmons, but he owned Simmons & Sons down on the West End. And I looked at Elliot and I said, Elliot, it's so good to see you. I see him from time to time, but I had to let him know that he was literally, I believe, my first black mentor and role model. And I had to be like 9 when I met him. He had beautiful daughters, Yolanda and Nikki. And hold tight. 908-962, you on Let's Talk About it. State your name, where you calling from.
Yo, this is Jim Ski.
Jim Ski.
Scrambler, a.k.a. Black Ram.
What's up, brother? How you been, man?
Man, good to see y'all. Good to hear y'all.
Good to be
I'm
seen.
a supporter of the program.
Yep, thank you.
All right.
Well, my issue, I love what Ellen had said about stereotypes and how there's no black saviors, only white saviors in these movies. You got to understand the narrative that's pushed. And in my research and going back throughout history now and just starting to just indulge in a little more clarification. If you paid attention to what's going on, every bit of education that we have received is miseducation. Every bit. If it ain't mathematics, there's probably somebody that mixed it up or misled. And we've been misled for years as people, even down to the narrative now that we only can make it out of the ghetto if we play basketball or we rap. And there is so many other avenues and so many other stories that's untold.
Fact.
So many stories that's untold, and our young people, our young writers need to dig more into it. First of all, I don't want to come off as racist, but I'm so pro-black that right now I can only see my family, my people. What others bring to the table, I'm skeptical because what hand do they want to play in? When I look at the NFL players and I understand that they make a deal with the devil to be rich, and then I look at the rappers, we make a deal to be rich, so we don't put forth the proper product that needs to be put out. We don't talk about the issues or talk about the things that's really important. And right now, with this narrative being pushed, you saw it with the shootings, mental illness. Like if black people don't have a right to be mentally ill, but that's never tagged to them in Chicago. With all the shooting, with all the dysfunction in the neighborhoods, mental illness never comes up.
Right.
And I'm telling you, it must be brought to the silver screen. I mean, I know I go by the term Rambo and all that, but it's really time to do some soul searching on our end, because we got to stop trying to turn up, stop trying to have fun, and get down to nitty gritty, because they're rewriting history in front of us, changing the narrative as we go along.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you, in my particular book, my autobiography, the first, I believe within the first 3 pages, I said I wanted to offer up something besides rap and a sport. And I did that purposely. I applaud anyone who makes it. I don't knock anybody's hustle. But the math, as you alluded to, it's an absolute science and it doesn't lie. 1 and 1 will equal 2, the pure numbers. So the percentages for us to make it in those arenas are against us. It's inverted. When you take the whole...
It's the numbers too low.
Right. That's my
it's
point.
2% chance.
Right. So there has to be another narrative brought to the screen that says, here's another way to go about. I don't care if it's a formal education. I don't care if it's a trade school. I don't care if it's an apprenticeship. Show one of those successful stories outside of a ball.
Yeah.
In a rap position. I love hip hop.
Outside of a handout from a white God or a white savior.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's so many people within the neighborhood that built the neighborhood of Plainfield. I could just go all the way around through the area and then talk about all the good families that,
Bill Robinson.
Bill Robinson. Everybody's avenues to success, or everybody's avenue or maturation process to betterness, you had all these good people from Hillside, and I'm going all the way from Hillside all the way over to E6, back all the way up to Carlton Avenue. And these was families and people that just mind their business, kept their integrity, but pushed you along the way. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
We all didn't make it out because we were drug dealers. We all didn't make it out of our situation because we played basketball and could dunk from the foul.
Right.
Some of us went to school.
Right.
Some of us went to the military.
Right.
Some of us put in other type of work.
Exactly.
And I know it's not glorified on the silver screen, but it needs to be magnified.
It's a
so
story.
everybody got it.
Listen, it's a story that should be told. Go ahead, Wanda.
Could I jump in real quick? I agree with what everyone is saying, but I am glad that this is coming out, because this story is actually about a young man who was railroaded and how, he went to a place basically of no return, but had it really not been for the fortitude of his mother being there for him, and he himself, going to a place, finding the center of himself, coming out and moving on with his life. This is a little more about redemption, and redemption in the sense that he didn't even cause his own circumstances, really. So it's a little different because it's about. So, and I'm not disagreeing with anybody, but I'm just saying that. But this particular one, I am anxious to see it because we all lived and remember in real time
I wouldn't support the movie
when it happened.
No, but it's still based on suffering. It's still based on our suffering.
Yeah,
and
but
there are other circumstances that can be movies can be even the Central Park Five. I mean, that movie.
Yeah, the
is
Central Park
phenomenal,
5 was a great
but
story.
It's
Yeah.
a great
And
story.
it
It's
happened
a
in real
fabulous
time during
story.
our
Right.
time.
But
Right.
I think the thing that I liked about it was it did focus a little bit more. Yes, it focused on their suffering, but it was 5 parts, so you got to see the entire arc
Right.
of their, the evolution of them.
Sure.
Right.
So, but yeah, I get tired.
And with
of
that
saying,
being
Right.
said,
I
in the
agree- I
movie, you
agree
get
with
to
that.
see the evolution of this
Yeah,
young
yeah,
man
yeah.
coming out of circumstances that were really beyond him. And let me also say, and what I think I'm hearing is, it's not so much that we don't want to see movies, true stories about suffering that should be told.
Sure.
But we want to see a balance.
A balance,
We want to see
right?
an equal
right,
balance.
a balance,
Of-
right?
of-
That leads
Right,
to,
I mean,
to
right,
my
'cause
position.
there's movies
We've
about the
seen
Holocaust,
so
but then there's
many
movies
of
about
the
a
ball of the rapper.
celebration, right.
Listen, that's really like
Right.
Allen Iverson. If you really know his story, that was Allen
Right,
Iverson.
right,
like
right.
I
Mhm.
don't
Yeah,
know, again,
exactly.
let's bring something else to the table
But hold
besides
on, I
that.
just
Right.
want to say this. So, if you have Netflix, I watched this documentary about this gentleman called Clarence Avant, The Godfather.
Yeah.
That is
Black
a
Yeah, that was
good,
Yes.
good
That was really good.
documentary.
Really
It
good.
is good. This brother was just like.
He had
There's no
his hands in
prison.
everything.
There's no, he has no record. This guy just puts it down, and it's really, really uplifting to watch a documentary about that, about a man that rises to heights through his own. He wasn't even really book smart, just through his own natural intelligence and his own ability to, he was a charismatic guy, but he was also very smart, and it's a very, very good documentary. I definitely, I recommend it. It's not prison, it's not drugs, it's not,
Good,
it's
you're right,
nothing like
right.
that. And this guy is
I'm
successful.
going to watch it.
He's
Send
the
it to
man
me.
behind a
All
lot
right.
of people.
Yeah, send that
it's
to
very
me.
good. Very
That-
good.
And one more thing I want to add. So to add this, and I'll get off the phone after. We watched them destroy Bill Cosby, right? And to me, Bill Cosby coming up was that role model that always kept his nose clean and he was Mr. Rogers. He was the black Mr. Rogers to me. Look, we
Right,
had the
correct.
white Mr. Rogers, but then
Correct.
Bill Cosby was Bill Cosby with the Fat Albert Show and everything.
Correct.
We gotta stop. Another thing, and that narrative, when the media come out and dirty us up, we should act just like they do when they get dirty. Like it's not a big deal. Because everybody's with fault. And anybody that's sinless can throw stones. But no one's sinless. So everybody should be putting their hands in their pocket. I watch us tear each other up on Facebook and media outlets.
Right.
And it's almost like piranhas. And yeah, there's been some heinous things done and heinous things that's been overlooked. But listen, our behaviors are learned behavior. From who? Our European masters. We didn't, and I tell people about this all the time. They always say, white Jesus, whatever. But we're not willing to give up all the whiteness. We're talking about white Jesus and how they revert to slavery, but we're not willing to give it all up. And I tell people this all the time. If you really, really did cut from it and cut out our own niche and go back to our moral values and standards, now you're talking. But if you just want to point fingers, all they do is watch us tear. They put out bait and watch us
Right.
tear each other up
Right.
in the media.
Right.
And it's sickening now.
Yeah.
I've been a part of it.
Yeah.
I had opinions. And
Right.
right now I say to myself, no more opinions.
Right.
No more.
Listen.
I can't add that. I can't throw no more flame on that fire.
Right. The earth's been burning a long time as the song goes. But listen, we do appreciate your commentary. We do
Yes, thank
appreciate
you
you
for
calling in.
calling. It was
Can we get
great.
some love?
Yeah.
Great comments.
It's
All
good
right.
to hear y'all voices.
All right. Always love, bro. We'll catch up with you.
Yeah.
Peace.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
One.
Wonder what we got.
Just real quick, I also wanted to speak on Toni Morrison. One of our ministers in our where's that coming from?
Yeah, that should be.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one of our ministers from our temple in Newark was he was an English teacher, and he had her as his student. And right up until he's still alive, actually. But whenever they would run into each other, she still calls him Professor. You know?
Oh, nice.
Yeah. His name is Benjamin Quattlebaum. Quattlebaum. But I wanted to say this about Beloved. I remember seeing that for the first time. I wasn't too much into reading her books, but I remember when the movie came out, and my brother and I, we didn't really know what the movie was about. And if you've ever seen the movie for the first time, it started off a little weird. But I have to say, in my humble opinion, that is probably one of the most unique ghost stories that I've seen. And it's centered around the time of slavery. It's centered around the time of slavery. And if you know about the story, you know they're escaped slaves, but it's eerie. It's very eerie how it paints the picture of this woman, you know, so desperate for freedom and all the hell that she caught under her slave master and all the slaves. And as Miss E said, it jumps around. You know, they'll discuss something that took place, and you're like, what are you talking about? And then they'll go back into time to paint that picture. So I thought it was a masterful movie. It didn't do too well in the movies. Personally, well, not personally, I've actually heard this said that it was so intense about the whole ordeal of slavery and what they went through. I mean, there's some shocking scenes in there that aren't necessarily graphic, but it kind of hinges on that one particular scene when they're all being tortured and just, you know, molested. And one person said they believe that certain people just couldn't sit and watch it because it pulled on the heartstrings of guilt and of why are they unearthing this? Why are they showing this? But, you know, and there's another scene in there that I like. Baby Suge, I think her name was. She was the matriarch of the family. And she was the glue, the matriarch. She was the big mama. And she was also a spiritual leader. And there's a segment in there where they back in the day, slaves were not allowed to have service by themselves. So they would have to, that's what it's saying, stealing away. They would have to steal away and have these campfire meetings in the woods. And, you know, and there was no rhyme or reason to their worship service. They just said what came to their spirit. And check it out. If you haven't seen Beloved, it's a great movie. It came out years ago.
It came out in the 80s. I think you may have to watch it like more than once.
You do.
And I think as we were talking about Toni Morrison's writing and the way, like, she didn't write linear. So to try to adapt that book, and this was like an acclaimed book. I didn't even know Beloved was such an acclaimed book. Right. Because for me, I know it was a book. I never read it because to me the movie just kind of. But I think it was hard to adapt it into a movie. Right. You know, it was just hard to it's kind of hard to do. Right. You know. Right. But I actually said I was going to read the book. I always prefer the book anyway. But it's a good story. It's a good story. Right. You know,
I've seen the book. I haven't read the book, but
that's like it's a very acclaimed book. I didn't even know that because the movie, like I said, ruined it for me.
That's what I mean when you put her in. That's what comes up. But absolutely haven't seen it. That like again, it's an iconic figure that's no longer with us. But I always say that writings are indefinite, meaning they'll never go away.
No, of course not. Never. It's like
So they'll become the greats.
You leave a legacy behind.
Right.
Like that.
That's exactly it.
You know, and artists, they always leave a legacy. I mean, people still reading, you know, Shakespeare.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So
Of course. Well, all right, what we got? You good, Wonder? We good down
Yes,
there?
sir.
All right. Always appreciate the commentary. What we got?
Yes, you
down
know
there,
what?
James Brown?
I want to say welcome home
Thank
to
you,
Centoya Brown, man. She spent 15 years behind bars for, she was convicted of killing a man who solicited her for sex. She was sentenced to life in prison. And many people felt that it was an unjust sentence. And the governor of Tennessee granted her clemency. She got released yesterday, early in the morning. And now she's on parole supervision. Some people argue, why didn't they vacate her sentence and other things like that? But I guess the biggest thing would be, she's home now instead of doing more time, depending on what life is termed in Tennessee. Some places it's 99 years, some places it's 70 years. So, but she's not waking up. She didn't wake up for count this morning, but she didn't pass away. She's home. So I say welcome home to Centoya Brown. And the other thing I saw, it was on the news last night in Sesame Place right here in Pennsylvania. You had one of those individuals who's been influenced by Orange Julius, so they got a little brave and told a black female to go back to where she came from.
I saw that.
And in the process, old Redneck got banned from Sesame Place. So, be careful out here, y'all, because in this day and this age, individuals feel real courageous because they have the backing of one who should be speaking out against this, but I don't think his cognitive abilities allow him to recognize discrimination, injustice, and insensitivity.
Right, listen, and I say it all the time, this isn't, 1719.
Oh, don't let
Things
these
are
hands-
different. Don't get it twisted. You know what I mean? It might put you in a bad position.
When I
if you-
first saw the video,
Right.
the lady was like, "Go back to where you came from," and she
Exactly.
grabbed at the camera.
She grabbed at
I was
the
like,
camera.
at that moment,
Right.
you remember those videos?
Right. When
At
keeping
this
it real.
moment, she knew she fucked up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
When
That's
keeping
how
it
I
real
felt, man.
goes wrong, right? I was like, yo, she kept telling me to go back to where you came from.
And
Where,
she
like,
became viral that quick.
Right.
So, if y'all are out here and y'all have hate in your heart, man, just keep it down in your heart, because stupidity can get you in some bad places.
some hot.
You ran up on
water.
a nice one that time. They put your video. I don't think you want to try that in the heart of the city, though. It might not be
Right.
good for you.
Might not work out for you. So, no.
But other than
Right,
that, rolling into the other thing, and we're rolling into the topic now, man, like, this week has been kind of interesting. In fact, it started last week, Dayton, Ohio. And where's the other place? There's one more place. 2 mass shootings.
El Paso?
El Paso,
El Paso.
Texas.
Yeah. We're going to jump
In
into
a
that.
span of 24 hours, man.
Right.
And people can dress it up as to what they want it to be. They can call it mental illness. I call bullshit. They can say a bad upbringing. I call bullshit. They can say, well, he had problems. That's his damn fault. He didn't go get them fixed. It's nothing but hate. That's all it is. Don't dress it up because it has no clothes. So
There-
prayers out to all of those that had to deal
without
with all
question,
of that stuff, man. Because
without question. Matter of
hopefully
fact,
we'll
let's
get it
give,
together.
if we can you cut the music down real quick? Let's just give a few seconds, a moment of silence to those lost in Dayton, Ohio, and El Paso, Texas. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
All right, since we're jumping into the talk, wait.
Yeah, we jumping on in, man. We're the
LB, when you-
springboard on that,
listen,
man.
You pledge a fraternity with a gentleman, and they do your job, right? You're fired, right? That's how that's gonna work.
No, you know what? I was finished talking, so I didn't want to be that dead silence like this.
Oh, well, if I could jump in.
I'm just
Well, before,
all right.
just to kind of add something to this, for years, many advocates have been putting the question to, people in power about, why isn't this being considered domestic terrorism? Why is this always considered only a hate crime? And so as super producer sets it up, we wanted to show you this link, this video link to
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
add to the
All right.
subject
this
about these shootings and.
Let me know when you're ready.
So yeah, let's go into that now.
We've seen white supremacist attacks that were clearly domestic terrorism. Experts, in fact, the acting AG, Jeff Sessions, even called some of these incidents domestic terrorism incidents. The Emmanuel AME Church shooting of Black Americans in Charleston and the Tree of Life synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh of Jewish people, those were only designated and charged as hate crimes, not domestic terrorist incidents. Mr. McGarity, why did the FBI not believe that these incidents were domestic terrorist incidents?
That's not correct. I don't know who told you that we didn't, but we certainly had cases open on them in both those cases. And
But the actual charge, was the actual charge domestic terrorism?
you're not going to find an actual charge of domestic terrorism out there. If you look at Title 18, right? If you're looking for
Well, it says here that, but at the San Bernardino shooting or the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting, they were designated and charged as domestic terrorist incidents.
they were charged, I'd have to go back and look, they were charged likely with, if there was a connection to a foreign terrorist organization, it would likely fall under 18 USC 23 A or B.
Doesn't it seem that because the perpetrator is
That's
Muslim,
not correct. That has nothing
that
to do,
the
that-
designation would
No.
say it's a foreign
no,
organization?
It's not correct. That is not correct.
Okay. Can you explain
Yeah.
why?
So, homegrown violent extremists, most of the people we arrest in the United States, homegrown violent extremists, self-radicalized, born in the U.S., doesn't matter what religion.
But
they
the
are.
Orlando Pulse Club shooter meets those qualifications, and you're
He was
implying,
worked as an international terrorist because he was following under the definition.
But he
of
was
how we
homegrown
work
and
homegrown violent
self-radicalized.
extremist cases, how we work homegrown violent extremist cases under the global jihad, we worked under international terrorism. That is correct.
is white supremacy not a global issue?
It is a global issue
So why are they not charged with foreign?
because the United
Terrorism.
States Congress doesn't have a statute for us for domestic terrorism like we do on a foreign terrorist organization like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab.
Could you see how this could create issues and discrepancies with how violent extremism by Muslim perpetrators could potentially, even if it's unintentional, but that there are holes and there are gaps here, not through your fault or any one specific person's fault. It could be our fault as Congress. But could you see how one could see how the way that we are pursuing and charging white supremacy, particularly if they tend to be charged with hate crimes and where that same type of violence committed by a Muslim extremist could be charged with domestic terrorism. Hate crimes and domestic terrorism are treated and charged, they're different crimes, and they could be pursued differently with different resource allocations. Can you see how people would say that these are being treated differently?
Predominantly, I would say, I'd have to go back and look, most of them are not hate crime charges on the domestic terrorism side.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will now. We've seen white supremacists.
All
Yeah.
right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I like what she did. I think she skillfully, she set it up, really not even to go back and forth with them, but just to prove her point. Because after she got what she needed, that's when she just said, okay. She asked the question, isn't white extreme, I forget how she puts it, isn't that global as well?
White supremacy.
White
Is that not
supremacy.
global?
And
Yeah.
he said, yeah, it is. And she said, well, how come we're not pursuing that the same way? And then he said, because the government hasn't, I guess, put in certain statutes or whatever,
Right,
certain
with laws
certain
for them
things
to-
in place
right,
for them to go after it. And I think that was skillfully done. She set that up because she said, I'm not blaming any, it's not your fault.
Yeah,
Maybe it's
yeah,
Congress. So see, she's kind of putting it back. Like, in other words, the American Congress, the American government has not pursued, because he's naming all these, he keeps saying international,
Right.
but the Klan, and the Klan is just the poster child of white extreme, right wing, nationalist, racist groups. There are tons of them, from the skinheads to different Nazi parties, where why aren't they being, sought after as homegrown terrorism? Now, when you look back, and you go back in time, I mean, it may be it may seem like it's a long time for us, but the first bomb that was dropped on Black Wall Street to kill black people. So bombs were dropped by the American government.
1921.
Right? So that was an act of terrorism. But see, the thing is that when the predominant society has power over the narrative, that's really what it is. That's the elephant in the room. But if you want to take it on an international level, well, hell, man, there's terrorism all over, predicated on.
But you know what?
Just white power.
I live here, so
Exactly.
when they say all of those things about internationally, I say
Terrorism
you've been
is
domestically terrorizing people for over 400 years
But-
on this land. When you brought some people back, and you turned them slaves, when you brought some people over here and turned them slaves, you've been domestically terrorizing this country since then.
Right, but the point she was making was that, okay, we don't go after domestic terrorists because we don't have a law. But what she was saying is that white supremacy is an international thing. So regardless if
Right.
we don't need a
Use the
domestic
use the law. Right.
you use the international law because this is an international. She set that up.
Right,
really
hate
good. And
is
you know
hate.
what?
It doesn't need to be
Yeah,
regionalized.
That
right.
girl is smart,
Right.
man. She's smart.
super smart.
She's really smart. And that's what she was saying. Like, all right, yeah, you don't have it. Okay, all right. It's not saying it's your fault. I'm not
Right.
saying it's anybody's fault. But
Explain
do
to me
you
why you're not
do
even
you
trying.
not agree
right.
that this is an international
Right.
problem?
And she
well,
said-
if it is,
Right.
then
She
you
made him
have
fess up.
everything, right? You have the tools that are required to
Right.
pursue this
Well-
with the same way that you pursue the, people that you think are associated with ISIS.
Right.
If they're associated with white supremacy, it doesn't have to be
Then, right.
contained or
Could
limited to the United States as it is right now.
Could it be that you're
You
a part
know.
of it and you really don't want us to know because a thief has never called another thief a thief?
Yeah, I think that
You know.
I
think that plays a big part of it.
somewhere-
I think that plays a
Listen.
big, but I'm gonna be
No, I
honest
got-
with you. I
right.
think that the axis is shifting just a little bit on this narrative of domestic terrorism.
Right.
It's shifting a little bit because
Right.
I'm hearing a different narrative from mainstream media. Like, no, this is domestic terrorism. This is not
Right.
a
Listen.
hate
Stop
crime.
trying to hide
No.
it,
This
right?
is not, what's the word? Mentally unstable.
Homegrown terrorism.
There's
Right.
tons of mentally
That was a
unstable
discussion-
people all over the
right.
world. They don't do this.
Listen, that was
Right.
Trump's advisors. Let's call it for what it is. That was
Right.
Trump's advisors
Right.
saying, this is the spin we believe you can put on it and go from there.
Right,
Because he
right.
tried to mention that T for
Right,
two and
but
the whole
that
lot,
didn't-
left,
yeah.
right. No, but because I know our window's closing so much, so
Yeah.
I have to speak to this next piece too, which is gun control.
Right.
Right? Gun control. Like we can't have a show and not talk about that. So when you talk about terror or you talk about mass killings and things
Yeah.
of that nature, when you have a magazine, right, that puts out 250 rounds,
Yeah.
right? I think I'm qualified to speak on it a little bit. I've shot an AR-15, M16, M4, M60. I've shot a,
Do you
I've
really
shot
need
one
that to hunt
you
wild
don't.
turkey?
No, you don't.
Right.
Like
No,
I'm
you
saying,
don't.
it's
Right.
and even on there, it's semi and
Right.
and it's automatic. The 50 cal. I've shot the 50 cal. On and on. Those are weapons of war.
Mass destruction.
Right.
It's
designed to kill people.
It's designed to
Sure.
kill, and a lot of people.
I
right,
mean,
quickly.
yeah,
Right.
quickly.
Right.
But
Right.
Right.
Can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
I think we mentioned this before with Australia back in '96. It was in the mid to late '90s where there was a mass shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately, the government acted, and basically what they did was they took away these high-powered assault weapons, and they basically said, "Listen, if you are not, military or a public official, you know, like the police or whatever, then you can't have these.
They just did it in New Zealand.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
just did it in New
yeah.
Zealand. Like
What's
within the
the
past, was the
And
prime minister.
we keep running
Now,
off
you
this
said something
entire-
key.
Yeah,
You said
woman,
you
like,
said
shit,
Yeah.
they just did
Okay.
it.
She's-
You know,
she's-
within the
she's good,
past
too.
year. Yeah.
But they keep harping on law-abiding citizens that will be punished. But here's the thing. Some of these people were law-abiding too
Sure.
before they snapped.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's not punishing. We're not saying you can't have guns.
everybody's
You
a
just can't have
law-abiding citizen
this
until they
type
get
of
caught.
gun.
But
That's all.
and
Listen.
if you
Right.
specify
the
that
founding
way,
fathers didn't know that it was
and
going to go from muskets
it has to
Right.
it has to be
AR-15.
but it has to be specified that way, because a lot of people say, you know what, I refuse to surrender my weapon. I don't care what it is. You're telling me I can't have it. So now I'm in the open. Now there are a lot of people who have weapons, but there's one small thing that distinguishes whether it's get used or not, and that's whether you have the wherewithal when it's time to pull the trigger. Can you do it? A lot of people say, yeah, I got a gun, I go to the range. It's a lot different
Sure,
when
it is. Absolutely.
it's in real time.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I'm quite
right.
sure there were individuals in an open carry state like El Paso, Texas, that had that weapon. But when those shots started going
Exactly.
But
a lot of stuff changed.
Here's the other piece.
Exactly.
I should have shot you this video, super producer. I think we've seen this. This was about 5 years ago. There was a group that did a study. They were in Ohio, where it's open carry. They first they gave the white guy a high-powered
I
assault
saw it. I know what you're
rifle.
talking about.
He walked through the town, all through the town of Ohio. Nobody messed with him. The brother barely got half a block when they did. And the police, somebody called the police, had him face down on the ground. He was licensed to carry open carry. I mean, they did it simultaneously.
Just to show
Not even
you.
simultaneously. They let the white guy go first, then the black guy. So even to
Where
that
the
extent,
bias is.
you have biases and issues. When the Black Panthers began carrying guns, when they walked on that state capitol, when Ronald Reagan was giving his interview, I think he was governor at the time, all of a sudden the NRA agreed with him and other lawmakers, oh, there needs to be restrictions on guns. But as soon as that was phased out and more of the dominant society began to have this hard on for guns, now all of a sudden, you know, the lobbyists and everybody, so now it's hard to even discuss adjusting or retooling the Second Amendment, the Second Amendment. So there's also hypocrisy interwoven with this discussion that these people are having up
Sure,
on the Hill.
absolutely.
Listen, wait,
absolutely.
and if I can, because I want to be clear, I do believe that Americans should have the right to bear arms.
Right, right. I
yeah.
agree with that too.
Listen, because
You
I
know
want to
I
be
agree.
Right,
Right.
right.
Now.
Right.
But I do
Yeah.
like if I walk into Wonder's home and just use it for an example, and I'm seeing M4s on your wall, I'm like, what the
What are
fuck
you
is
getting
wrong
ready
with
for,
Wonder?
bro?
Like, is the apocalypse
and you
upon
didn't
us?
tell me, or can I
Right.
borrow one of
But
these?
now,
I
listen,
need
if
it.
you have a 45 Magnum, I'm gonna say that's nice.
Right.
If you have a 38, I'm gonna say that's nice. If you have a 9mm, I'm gonna say, hey, that's right. If you have a pump shotgun, I'm gonna say, hey, that's nice. But when I'm looking at your wall and I'm seeing an M16, AR-15, M4s, you hit your button, you slide open, and you got high capacity magazines, I'm like, what's going on?
Well,
With-
Right.
right,
Wonder.
exactly. And you know what? I think too. Like, yeah, I do think that I don't have a problem with the Second Amendment as far as bearing arms, because you know what, this government, if it ever got crazy, like,
Listen,
we
you
should
bust
have
in my
a right
house,
to
I'ma blow your
defend
head
ourselves.
off, period.
Because we
Right.
have, that Second Amendment was put in place. You have the right to defend yourself against the
Correct.
government.
Correct.
You know, against the government.
Right.
So here's the thing. I remember Chris Rock did a bid on this. You know, you want to stop gun violence? Like, hike up the
Bullets
price
cost
of bullets.
$5,000,
You know?
right?
When you see people
Give all us a
online,
gun.
listen, you
They'll change
ever
it
buy
tomorrow.
something on Amazon and they got you pegged, you know? This is what you might like. You bought this 2 weeks ago, 30 days ago.
Right.
When these people are purchasing all of this ammunition, why is there no red flag that,
Mm-hmm.
says to law enforcement or to anybody, I'm not saying that they got to come kick your damn door in, but why is there no red flag? Why is there no limit on, on some of this ammunition? Like, I don't
You mean like
get
the
it,
same way they
you know?
monitor your money? If
Well,
you have more than
yeah,
$10,000,
Well, it's like if you buy
Exactly.
If you
Or
buy
how
tons
you
of-
can't go
of baking
use your
soda-
ATM machine. You
Right.
can't use your ATM card
Yeah.
over a certain limit.
Right.
Right.
If
I
you
can
buy-
only
if you-
take out
if you
certain
listen, if you
amount
go
a
to
day.
Walmart and you start buying all these mixes of powders and tons of baking
You're about
powder,
to start a meth lab
Right.
or
immediately
trap house,
somebody's
right?
gonna jump on you.
Somebody's gonna-
Here's
right.
the other piece: how are these like militia? You talk about this
Right.
control. When they break into their compound, they have tanks,
Right.
rocket launchers.
Right. How did you get
Yeah, how
this?
did
How
you
do you
acquire
acquire
this?
this? Right.
Some of that'll come off the black market.
Right,
But
sure.
listen,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're buying 5.56 rounds, I'm standing, I'm just like, and that goes inside the AR or the M16.
How do you sneak a tank, though,
I'm,
to your
why
backyard?
are we buying so many 5.56 rounds?
I'm saying,
Yeah,
why,
yeah,
why,
yeah.
yeah,
Why are
because
you
this
buying
guy
them
had
anyway,
more
right?
rounds in his, or one of the guys in Dayton, I think, that guy, he had like all these rounds in his car. Like, what?
Right.
You
And
know?
listen,
in his car.
I've been to Dayton plenty of times. Beautiful city.
And they
And I've
said
been
that
to
was a really
I've been to El Paso,
Yeah.
home of Tony Lama Boots, and anybody that's watching from there know that that's like a staple down a beautiful city. And for that to happen there, it was that, I mean, like when I say it affected me, I've been there.
Listen,
I
man.
just it like that hurt. Like I'm tired of seeing it. Like I'm not gonna do
I'm
the Don
tired of
Lemon
seeing
and rant, but what I am gonna say, if I can, real quick,
Yeah,
is
no.
that the narrative right now needs to be addressed by our leadership. Congress, simply act, send it to the Senate, see what happens. Donald Trump, sign it into law, show something, background checks, any movement forward, any
Yeah,
one
any
movement forward.
They got this red flag thing they want
Right.
to do now. Like if
Yeah, but that
if you
really that
can-
goes back to mental health.
No, I
Right,
get
that's
it, I get it,
like
get it,
I'm
I
not
get
gonna
it.
let them like sleight a hand. No, that
I get it. I get
right.
it. Any step is like some kind of progress. Because right now, since those kids died in Sandy Hook, there's been nothing. No,
That's when
what
I
is
knew
the name
nothing
of
was
the
gonna
place?
be done.
Wait, where did those kids?
Oh my
Sandy Hook
goodness.
Elementary
Sandy
School,
Hook
Yeah,
was
Sandy
the
Hook.
most recent
Sandy
one,
Hook,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
You're talking about 22 kids, 22
after
first
that-
and first graders
yeah, I
and
knew nothing was
kindergartens.
gonna be done.
They didn't do anything at all. It's like but be honest though. I think about something popping off wherever I go. I'm gonna be honest with
Oh,
you.
you have to have
I
your
don't walk in a store
situational
without
awareness,
thinking
right.
about it. I don't not think about it at work. We have training at work. Do you have training at work for active shooters?
We do.
We
No.
do.
We do.
No,
We
we
do.
don't.
Yeah.
We do.
I don't need it though.
We do.
I already know what to
it's
do.
like your kids have drills on active shooters. It
Right.
is such a part of our psyche that it's a part of our life now. And it's sad. It's so sad. It's disgusting.
I feel
Every
like
time
this.
I gotta do it, I'm like, I'm so jammed up inside. But I'm like, damn, what do I, like, I know what I'm gonna do, because it's basically every man for himself.
But see, the thing
But
is,
it's just, it's like a part of you dies every time you're doing it. It's like,
Right.
But
really?
like I
Right.
work
This
in
is us.
I work in a school, right? And so at my age, I believe that every child that's in that school has the right to make it at least to my age.
Right.
So I couldn't live with myself if I didn't go towards that threat or do something for it. There's no way that I can live with myself
Sure,
knowing that
absolutely.
Sean, you got to try,
Right.
even if it means if it's your day, it's your day.
Right.
But every kid in that school deserves to make it to my
Sure,
age, and I
sure,
should be willing to lay mine down for that.
And there's always, here's the thing, Sean, and there's always that person in all of these shooting
Right.
scenarios. There's always that person that did this to protect this person. There
Right.
was that husband and wife that were
Right,
protecting their
right.
child. You know, that guy that got those kids out. There's always that person. My point is the fact that we even have to consider
Consider
it
it, right.
is sickening.
Right.
It is absolutely
Totally
sickening.
agree.
And there's something wrong with us. Like when you step back from the situation, it's like, what does the rest of the world think of us with these guns and the fact that we will not do anything about them? That we're so beholden to the NRA. It is foolish.
Yeah, I'm not beholden to them. They
No,
kiss
I'm
my
not
ass.
either. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that the politicians are beholden
That's
to them
it.
to the point where they don't, they're immobilized.
If they were a governing, like, I
know,
don't want to
it's
use the word
sickening.
governing. If they were a body that supported the Second Amendment, which they do, like, viewing audience, let me finish my statement or my thought here. If they supported the right to bear, I'll use this one word, reasonable arms, and they served as that organization, then hey, good for the NRA. But they don't. They say arm up and grab whatever weapon
Yeah, because
of
you have the
choice, right?
Yeah, you have
To
the
do
right.
that,
You
and
have
I
as
just
much
don't
as
feel
you
like
want.
your normal civilian should have an AR-15 or like the threats here aren't that serious.
No,
meaning
right.
there aren't enemies at our borders where we need to take up
No,
arms and
absolutely
do
not.
that. If
Right.
that's the case, then there's martial law, and listen, we need everybody because the enemy is on our shores.
Right.
You can go into a whole spill on that, but my
Right.
point is, it's not. It's horrible when you have mass weapons of destructions in the hands. Listen, these are our youth that are doing it. He was what, 22, the one guy?
It's always
Right.
some,
Young.
always some young guy.
But
always some young
the other piece to that
guy.
is, I feel you also have to factor in the social and racial climate of this country, and the one that was shot
It's
and
undeniable.
killed.
That's
the one
undeniable.
The one that
Right.
the one that was shot and killed
The man with the
was
manifesto.
he was he was through and through. He was racist to the core. And the thing is that I think that ties into to an extent of why people are allowed to continue to purchase these high-powered weapons, these automatic weapons. A lot of these folks who have these high-powered automatic weapons, and I'm saying a lot, I'm using a broad brush. When you look at how they're training and what they're doing, and when you talk about the enemy, well, who is the enemy? Who are they? Why are they?
Define the enemy,
Yeah,
right?
why are they in the woods training? And who are they? Who are they training, preparing themselves for? And when you start peeling back the layers and you look at other manifestos of groups who firmly believe in that Second Amendment and that it should not be touched and that they should be allowed to, purchase these high-powered, semi-automatic weapons, the enemy is not folks coming in from over the border. The enemy, for many of them, look like you and I. And so, when you take it back to like even the 50s and the 60s, Malcolm, he said this a long time ago. He said black people should form rifle clubs. He said they should form rifle clubs. And he said it for a reason. And here it is. Not to say that that's the answer today, but I understand why he said it. Because look at where we're at now. These people who are doing the people that were shot and killed in Ohio, did you see the faces
Right.
of the ones that died? How many of it was it? 11 of them?
Mm-hmm.
I think 9 of them were young black folks.
Yeah, but they're not saying that one was a hate crime. They're not saying that one
Yeah,
was.
but I don't care what
Yeah,
they
that-
say or don't say. I'm looking at the history behind a lot of these. The Timothy McVeigh guy who blew up the building, again, terrorism. There were black folks in there. You look at the books he was reading, his standpoints and all of that. Again, which ties into the video that we just saw. My thing is that, put it this way, if the tide turns where people of color begin to legally outnumber gun owners who own these high-powered weapons and rifles, something will be done about it.
Oh, something will be done quick.
Yeah,
Something will be
if that happens,
because again, when it looked like it was about to happen with the Black Panther Party,
They started,
no other time did the
started changing
NRA
stuff, right?
come out of the woodworks
Right.
and say, "Oh, whoa, this is you're right. This has to stop. We got to put parameters on this, and we have to put mechanisms in place that where everybody just can't
Right.
walk around with rifles."
I wonder.
So
right.
there's other things that play into
right.
it.
There's so many different arguments to the argument, but my bottom line is I just don't think weapons of war should be in the hands of
No,
everyday
absolutely
Americans,
not.
black or white.
Absolutely
I agree.
not.
I don't,
That's-
I don't
yeah,
think it should be in the
yeah.
hands of anybody. Right.
But in the same breath, I do believe we should have the right to bear arms.
And I agree with you. And the Second Amendment doesn't automatically give you the right to have an automatic weapon.
Right,
You know,
exactly,
It doesn't.
exactly.
You know? And then it doesn't, like you said, when it was written, it was about muskets.
Muskets.
And,
It took you 5 minutes just to load it.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
They had no idea the
They said,
technology.
hell, I'm
They
not
had
wasting
no
this
idea
bullet, man.
that it was going to lead to something, or that you would have this type of, these type of weapons. I mean,
There's such a difference. Have you ever fired a
I
firearm?
mean, even in the Civil War, they didn't even have machine guns in the Civil War.
Right.
They only got that like World War One.
like my
machine
point
gun.
in the introduction was actually the Gatling gun. But
Mm-hmm.
when you fire a weapon, that's why I asked, have you ever fired a weapon? You know that weapon is designed to kill
Sure,
Or bang.
plenty
people, right.
of people in the shortest
Right,
amount of time.
right.
I remember the first time.
People.
421st when I was a ground combat readiness instructor, and they put the 60 in my hand and said, have at it. That's a lot of death and a lot of power.
Sure.
I'm telling you it is. And to imagine something like that, even in M4, which is lighter, more compact, which was my actual, that and the 9mm was my service weapon in special operations. It delivered what it was supposed to fast. And so in my mind, I just can't begin to fathom why you would want to put that in the public's hand. And you become proficient with that weapon extremely
I don't
in the
either. I
military,
don't
especially in that arena. So I just don't get that. But listen, we can go on and on for days. Bottom line is
understand
we
that.
always appreciate everyone's commentary that's on the paddle, regardless of position. That's what we're here to do, to talk about it. So I appreciate that. But listen, it's about that time. It's 8:03. Black Ops got to eat because I'm hungry because I didn't get anything. So we're going to wrap this up. So what we got, Dean Geronimo?
You know what, closing out, like I always say, when you walk outside your front door, it's showtime and the world is your stage. Just make sure that people are not watching the rehearsal. With that being said, it's the six-man Dean Geronimo. I'm out. Have an outstanding week, man.
I so want to chuckle, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. What we got, Miss E? When's our next show? You got a set?
Our next show is going to be August 22nd. So tune in to BKS One Radio at 7 p.m. And we will see you then.
All right.
Hey, listen, our garden is growing. We got some things sprouting out. And so, we're getting our green thumb intact. And so, just
Oh, that's good.
yeah, man.
that's
So
great.
so again, once
Where's
again,
something?
I will. We started off small.
Please.
And here we are.
Yeah, because we wanted to gauge
Yeah,
see
how
how well we
yeah,
could do.
Sure.
And so next year it will be even bigger because
Nice.
again,
Nice.
we want to do something special with what we grow.
Okay,
So yeah,
cool.
Hey, give it up one more time for that.
Great.
Because I
right.
can't garden my ass for nothing. I'll kill
I can
a
grow
weed.
some weeds, dog.
Right. With that. Well, back in the day, I don't know. I don't want to bring weed to me. Like,
No, I ain't say
don't-
weed.
Weed?
I said weeds.
Oh, my bad. All right.
Yeah,
We
don't.
have
No,
too many
we don't have
deer.
those.
Like
Too many.
in our neighborhood, it's way too many deer.
Listen, don't go out there shooting up there.
I'm not.
Because they'll shoot your black
I'm
ass.
not.
Make no mistake about it. Bag her up.
No.
Bag her up.
No, I'm afraid of them things. I wouldn't even.
Listen, and I normally go into.
You couldn't even shoot it. You would be locked up because it's in a residential area. This isn't even
Right.
you know.
If I
it's
saw you
your
on the news
backyard.
and they said, today Miss E in Plainfield,
Oh,
New Jersey,
no,
killed a dead,
no, I would
I'd be
never
like,
do
yo,
that.
she
That would be too
wildin'.
dangerous,
I'm going to
yeah.
say, I would write you,
You
though.
couldn't even
If you're in
do
prison,
something like that.
I would write you and come and see you. Put money on your commissary. I'd be like, what's up, Miss
There's no
E?
need.
Come
I'm
through the
not
Clinton,
doing
right?
that. I'm not doing that.
Miss E will be like, yo, I'm in here. I got to do my time.
Then
Yo.
we gonna be on the show with the Free Miss E
No,
t-shirts
no.
on.
Miss E. Right. Everybody going to be out there
I
free,
see them
Miss E.
deer. I be like, ooh, y'all got that.
My son's car, listen, my son had a nice little car he used to get around with. The deer jumped over the fence, hit the side of his door, like totaled his car. I was like, damn, a
They'll
deer
tear you,
did
they'll
that?
tear your car up.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, they're big. I mean, they're heavy. I don't even know how much a deer weigh, but I know when I see them in my front yard or the backyard, I be like,
You get your broom and be like,
y'all
get out of
got-
here.
No, I be like, y'all got that.
Right. All right.
Have a nice day.
Well, normally I go into a long, drawn out. I'm just playing, but I kind of summarize the show a little bit. But I'm gonna keep it real short, and say this before I do all the shout outs and all that.
Oh.
But it's simple. It's real simple. I'm just gonna simply say, love thy neighbor.
Okay.
Those are my remarks. Love thy neighbor. So as always,
As that so.
That's a good show.
wait.
I'm like,
As
you got more
always,
remarks?
yeah.
Oh.
Well, I gotta shout out the super
Hey.
producer.
Okay.
Big up to the super producer. Look at you, Missy. You ready to go? You got the car
Said I'm
keys
ready
and
to eat.
everything.
She's
You
like, yo, I'm
ain't no
out of
chill.
here.
I'm ready to go.
Right.
It's
Big
like,
up to the
okay.
CEO, Storm Norton, who makes it all happen.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes,
And as
yes.
always, if there's something you want to talk about, call in. Let's talk about it. It's a wrap, folks. Bye.